The key to getting anywhere in the wrestling business is having a finishing maneuver that makes you stand out from the pack. And so often with these moves, the reason why they're so revered is because the person who A. originated them, or B. popularized them has passed the proverbial torch onto someone else to use the finisher and to carry on its legacy. Sure, this hasn't always worked out for the best, but hey ho, we all love a try, right? I'm Gareth from What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 times wrestling finishers pass the torch. Number 10, Stunner. Steve Austin to Kevin Owens. Forget leg drops and pedigrees, brother. No move on the planet has ever received such consistently insane reactions from crowds as much as Steve Austin did for dropping fools with his patented stunner. These days, of course, Kevin Owens is using the stunner as his own personal finishing maneuver. During his days on the independent scene, KO would often use his package piledriver on his way to success, while the vast majority of his time under the WWE banner saw Owens utilize the pop-up powerbomb. Since 2019 though, the one-time Universal Champion has been hitting stunners as his go-to finisher of choice. You always get the feeling that Kevin Owens is a genuinely respectful guy, and it comes as no surprise to hear how he contacted Austin to ask permission to start using the stunner. WWE's resident prizefighter did actually use the stunner once before though, which came during his Royal Rumble 2017 match against Roman Reigns. But when it came to using it on a weekly basis, KO sought to seek the Texas Rattlesnake's approval, because that's what heroes do. Number 9, Sharpshooter. Bret Hart to Natalya. Some of the greatest names to ever step foot in the squared circle were forced to tap out to Bret Hart's Sharpshooter. It wasn't just Bret Hart who'd utilize that move in WWE though, for his younger brother Owen would also end up adding the maneuver to his arsenal for several years. More recently though, it's Bret and Owen's niece Natalya who's been seen using the Sharpshooter as her finishing move on WWE programming. Natty may not have had quite as much success as her uncles, but the move has often served the Queen of Hearts well over the years, winning the SmackDown Women's title with the submission against Naomi in 2017. Admittedly, there wasn't really any grand passing of the torch per se, but more Natalya looking to continue the legacy of Bret and Owen, which more than earns her a place on this list. Number 8, Pedigree. Triple H to Seth Rollins. With the curb stomp off the table following his sensational Money in the Bank cash-in at WrestleMania 31, Seth Rollins found himself in desperate need of a new finishing move as he embarked on his first reign as WWE Champion. Given how he was at that point in the pocket of Triple H and the Authority, Rollins figured that a natural fit could well be the pedigree that Hunter had used to topple guys left and right over the years. Seeking a passing of the torch, the former architect of the Shield approached the game and asked how he'd feel about allowing Rollins to take the pedigree on for himself, to which Trips responded by handing him the keys to the finisher. In the end, both Triple H and Seth Rollins would both hit pedigrees on one another at WrestleMania 33, and thus the Kingslayer was born. Number 7, Figure 4 Leglock. Ric Flair to The Miz. In terms of a public passing of the torch, not many can rival Ric Flair gifting the Figure 4 Leglock to The Miz, mainly because said torch passing took place live on a January 2013 episode of Monday Night Raw. Given that he's been known as the dirtiest player in the game for decades, the reality of the situation is that the Nature Boy won most of his numerous championships and main event matches by underhand measures, meaning that he rarely actually had success with the Figure 4. Still, that aforementioned 2013 edition of Raw saw Flair hand a Figure 4 Leglock over to the Awesome One. Even if Flair has often joked how he has no idea why anyone would ever want to copy the move. Backing up Flair's words, the Figure 4 is essentially merely a footnote in the career of The Miz, with the move struggling to garner any significant crowd response for the A-lister, before he quietly opted to instead rely more on the skull-crushing finale to see off his opponents. Wise choice, Mike. Number 6, Mandible Claw. Mick Foley to Bray Wyatt. Mick Foley didn't particularly invent the claw, but Foley and his mandible variety popularized that choking maneuver for a whole new generation of fans when he began using it during his Mankind days. The hardcore legend was a staple of the Attitude Era. Here in 2021 though, it's the Fiend Bray Wyatt who has taken on his move as his own. In a fairly nice passing of the torch moment, Wyatt only really started doing the Mandible Claw after he put Foley down with the move during a July 2019 episode of WWE Raw. As he revealed later in the year, Foley detailed his happiness of being able to pass that move over to Bray Wyatt. And for Wyatt, laying out Foley with the WWE Hall of Famer's own move was a major part of setting the tone for what fans could expect from this then new Fiend persona. And it's all gone swimmingly ever since. Number 5. Rampage. Paige to Nia Jax. Her in-ring career may have been sadly cut short, but man, did Paige have some great finishing moves during her WWE run. The best of the bunch, of course, was the PTO submission move. Away from the PTO though, Paige also had the rather badass-looking Rampage DDT to call on during her time on the WWE main roster. After Paige was forced to call time on her in-ring days though, there was a spell in 2020 when Nia Jax began using the Rampage to finish off opponents. And straight from Paige herself via Twitter, that was something that she had given to Jax. Unfortunately, Nia Jax would only use the Rampage for a relatively short space of time, with many wrestling fans speculating that she stopped using the move after being deemed, well, not exactly the safest of workers. A reputation she's managed to keep up coming into 2021 as well. You have to admire the consistency. Number 4. The Power of the Universe. Hulk Hogan to Abyss. Hulk Hogan was not content with merely offering Abyss the leg drop that squashed monster after monster. No, instead the Hulkster took things to a whole other insane level in 2010 by gifting Abyss with, well, the power of the universe. It's a truly tough task trying to single out the most outright nuts thing to take place in TNA's history. Because let's face it, there's just so many. But if put on the spot to name that one piece of insanity that tops the rest, many would probably point towards Hogan's bizarre passing of the torch to TNA's resident monster. For context, this was at a time when the hulking hardcore beast Abyss was having a wobble in confidence. So Hogan's solution was to give the one-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion his WWE Hall of Fame ring, seemingly with the belief that said ring held the power of Hulkamania, brother. And yes, Abyss became a whole new, confident, dominant figure when in possession of this ring. But without it, it was back to a shivering, sniveling bag of nerves for the behemoth. Poor fella. Number 3. The Taz Mission. Taz to Dominik Dijakovic. Admittedly, this one's a bit of a weird one, with a smidge of mild beef to it. But ultimately, Taz passed the Taz Mission torch to Dominik Dijakovic. In a 2019 Twitter exchange that's long since been deleted, Dijakovic asked Taz if he could start using the Taz Mission submission as his new finish. Taking umbrage with being contacted in such a public way, the former ECW World Heavyweight Champion encouraged Dijak to contact him privately. Skip ahead to the next day and Taz would indeed confirm that the pair had exchanged private messages, and that he had indeed given the 6'7" star permission to start using the Taz Mission. For those wondering why there's no footage of Dijakovic showing off his own version of this lethal submission hold though, that's because he's never once used the move on a TV broadcast as of yet. Who knows, maybe one day we'll see T-Bar of Retribution get himself a win utilizing the human suplex machine's devastating chokehold. Whatever the reason,
now's not the time for the Taz Mission. That'll come later.
Number 2. The Ankle Lock. Kurt Angle to Joe Hendry. It was Ken Shamrock who made the ankle lock a beast of a submission finish, with the MMA icon snapping many an ankle legit in the octagon and kayfabe in a WWE ring. Yet while the world's most dangerous man may have brought the move to the wrestling table, it's likely Kurt Angle who is most synonymous with the move in a pro wrestling context. And when Angle pulled down his straps and then cinched in a grapevine version of his signature move, many an opponent instantly knew they were screwed. Jack Swagger took on the ankle lock during his WWE tenure and beyond, yet the Oklahoma native never particularly had the torch passed to him by Angle on that front. One person who did, however, is Joe Hendry. Speaking to Ring of Honor Wrestling in late 2019, the former WCPW champion explained, "Kurt Angle told me that I needed to have a submission if I wanted to have main event level matches. Neither of us spoke for a while until he said, 'You want to use the ankle lock, don't you?' Kurt gave me his blessing to use the hold, which I now proudly use with a little twist of my own, where I step over it into a single leg Boston Crab position, which I have humbly titled the Hendry Lock." Number 1. Ace Crusher. Johnny Ace to DDP. When thinking of John Laurinaitis aka Johnny Ace, the first thing that the majority of modern-day wrestling fans will think of is the gravelly-voiced people power character who bored us all to tears on WWE programming. For those of a slightly older vintage though, Big Johnny will be remembered for skateboarding to the ring alongside Shane Douglas as the Dynamic Dudes. In reality, Johnny Ace is responsible for creating one of the most influential and copied maneuvers in the history of the wrestling business. During his time wrestling in Japan, Ace created what would be known as the Ace Crusher. In the years since then, that move was taken up by Diamond Dallas Page as the Diamond Cutter, used by Randy Orton as the RKO, adapted to become the Stone Cold Stunner, and has also been utilized by, amongst others, QT Marshall and Cody Rhodes. The first passing of the torch here was from Johnny Ace to DDP. With Page in need of a finisher, he called Ace to ask permission to use the Ace Crusher. Skip ahead a few years to when DDP knew he was retiring, and the 3-time WCW champion called Randy Orton to offer him the move. And just last year, Page similarly asked QT Marshall if he'd like to take on the Diamond Cutter as his own. Truly, 'tis a move passed down through the generations, I think you'll agree. And that's our list. Know of any other times wrestling finishers passed the torch? Let us know all about them in the comments section below, and do not forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button. Also, be sure to head on over to whatculture.com and find some more incredible articles just like the one this video is based on. I've been Gareth from What Culture Wrestling, thank you very much for watching, and I'm sure I'll see you very, very soon.